So then, but to build the FAFSA building on your tax system, which is already complicated, and now we're asking you to fill out another document or documents. It's challenging sometimes, and especially I don't know if I get W-2s, W-4s, 1099s, and because you look at these once a year, and so it can be complicated. And so more and more schools are coming out with glossaries and terms on websites. But then also the government has that also.
That's right.
And
so studentaid.ed.gov, correct?
And it's the good thing is these forms have come a long way where it's essentially drawing a line and telling you, okay, in this box, you have to go to your 1040 and take this number and put it in here.
Right.
And so it's gotten a lot better, but it still can be overwhelming, especially if people are using a tax service and they haven't done their taxes at all, and now you have just a pile of forms in front of you, and that's where schools will help. And both high schools, secondary schools, and college. Everybody. The goal is to make sure these forms are filled out correctly, filled out on time, and the key is on time, and as painless as possible.
That's right. And I think that a lot of people need to know, so it's been great when the government made all the application forms available October 1st. So I always try to tell them, give yourself a treat versus a trick and get it done by the month of October, and not to be afraid to pick up the phone. Especially, I know, with the new generation of students, in my experience, they're so afraid to pick up the phone. And if you are, then go find that support system that won't be afraid to pick up the phone. Because I know FAFSA for the federal government has a phone number that's free, CSS profile through the College Board, and then also the amazing financial aid officers that are out there as well, too. So that's really important. Now, a lot of times, some of students, we're getting language differences increase. So there are some families where English is not their language at home. Have you heard down the pipe that CSS profile or FAFSA, because I'm assuming you're also on some committees where some decisions of how can we make this more accessible for families. Are they thinking about making more translations available?
The goal is to, and I know more and more schools are translating websites, and again, it can be overwhelming, especially if we're giving a talk at a high school, and it's in English, and half the population isn't understanding.
That's right.
And that puts a lot of pressure on the student who maybe is doing the interpreting for families. I know that we're always looking for people to work in our office who have multiple languages, which is great. As I said, websites have to be are being looked at to be translated, and that will help. And as I said, schools, colleges are looking to do that also, because having a website in English when we know some families can't read it is not good for business.
No, and I know some students use strategies where if there's nothing, there's Google Translate. I know sometimes students, I've done it myself, where I sat down with my parents translating the information. But I think the hardest part is asking the questions, because like you said, when you say money, that equals stress sometimes, and then sometimes that gets in the way of pride. So a lot of times students, regardless of their background, have a hard time of asking parents the money question, right? Let's look at colleges. So you've been doing this for a while, and you've dealt with all different types of families, different backgrounds. Any recommendations for whether it's the student, hey, family, can you do this? Or whether it's the parent, I can't get another loan. I can't do this. What recommendations for both sides do you have for them?
So because President Obama, before he left office, changed our financial aid cycle to prior year,
right.
Which means we're moving the tax year to 2 years ago rather than the prior year. That's why we call it prior. That has, so for instance, I'm we're in 2020 right now.
Yes, we are.
And people applying for aid are using 18 taxes. Mm-hmm. And those 18 taxes have been done for a long time now. Yeah. So for families, in terms of picking strategies on how to talk about this, well, first of all, making sure realistically that, okay, I can go through this. If a family says, I can't take another loan out, having prior year, we can have estimates done so that families can see, okay, you just applied to 5 $70,000 colleges. Mm-hmm. But what is the net price? And a student can show that to a family member.
That's right.
Way ahead of time. Being able to say a net price is essentially, what are the costs going to be, whether it's to the family, out of pocket,
right.
whether it's
not
a loan.
Not including loans or work
Correct.
study, right? So net price is all the free money and
free
your contribution
money.
That is calculated.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's the free money. The college, if the college is $70,000 and you have a $30,000 scholarship, mm-hmm. the net price is $40,000. Mm-hmm. And taken away from that, maybe a loan or work study, but you have to work for the work study. Yeah. So there is there's a cost to that. So you can't just take that off and lower the net price. And the loans you have to pay back. So I say this, though, because I keep going back to there should be no surprises. Far enough ahead of time, you can be able to show, a family can be able to see, this is what it looks like. And, we talk about this academically, that there needs to be safety schools for academics.
Yes.
And there absolutely has to be financial safety schools.
Yeah, I always tell the kids you need to have 3 categories, like you said, for a likely for admissions, a likely for financial aid, and that you like the college.
Yeah,
right?
That's the key.
So,
absolutely. Absolutely. And so, again, with all of these resources that are available, it makes it much easier to say, okay, I think we can do this. Mm-hmm. And then there's also a lot of money out there in terms of outside scholarships.
Oh,
so
my
we're
God.
bringing in, our students are bringing in millions of dollars actually in outside funds. And that's wonderful.
No, I know. A lot of people don't realize, like, for those who are Pell Grant eligible, low income, right, there's the GATE, the Jack Can't Cook. But also, if you do have some financial means at home, but there's other scholarships like the Elk scholarships,
Absolutely.
or those little small ones that add up at the Courage to Grow. They don't even ask what your income is, or the Voice of Democracy. So they can add up for all different types of families.
Absolutely. And someone could say, oh, I just got a $250 scholarship. And they're like, that's it. And I'm like, hey, we just paid for a couple textbooks.
Yeah.
So everything adds up. And it goes to the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. It definitely does. So any way to help families understand, because you collaborate with other financial aid directors as well, about, like, they'll see schools with beautiful buildings, new rec centers, new dorms, and then they'll get their financial aid. It's like, wait, why isn't the money being allocated for my kid? Because there are some schools that don't meet full need, right? Or some schools like, well, we're going to meet need but not merit. Can you explain why some schools choose one or the other without getting into, like, the nitty gritty of it?
Well, I think it's every school is a little bit different, and I think there's a lot of pressures on financial aid, and it's a huge expenditures for all these for all colleges. It's just a very large expenditure, and I can tell you at Dartmouth we're the largest, other than salaries and benefits. Financial aid is the largest budget item, which is just remarkable, and we're always looking for ways to be able to increase financial aid awards, and
it's the biggest dilemma of the 21st century. I think one of them, right?
I think it's really big. It's really big because not every. I feel really lucky working at Dartmouth, being able to, when someone's admitted saying we're going to meet full need, I really truly. That is an incredible statement, and we're giving out this year $112 million. And I got to tell you, I know how lucky we are. I have two daughters who are, one's in college, one's a senior in high school, and looking at colleges, and I hear all their friends, and I hear about different situations they're getting into.
That's right.
And I know how lucky I am working at Dartmouth. But colleges face a lot of pressure, and people like bling, and they like an amazing fitness center, and they like brand new residence halls, and so colleges are making decisions, and it's really tough to split up the dollars, and tuition can't keep going up. That's nationwide.
Yeah.
It's just getting too expensive, and the outcomes are incredible when people are graduating and the jobs they're getting. It's all the studies show that higher ed and the return on investment is there, but it's scary when you see price tags and you see public schools that are so expensive, and you see private schools and schools that aren't meeting full need, and if a Pell student is going to a $70,000 school and they only have a $30,000 income, that's really scary.
Oh, it's very scary. And for our listeners, a Pell recipient is someone who's usually meets up the low income criteria for the federal government. And so from always hearing, it's like, it's to shop around and to look around, right, and ask the questions, right. And I always remember there was this one student where cost was never an issue for the family, and a kid got accepted to a private school, but then the kid was smart enough to say, well, hey, Mom, Dad, are you going to pay for graduate school? Because I do really want to be a lawyer. And they said, oh, no. I mean, we're paying this much. So he took a moment, and he did the unpopular thing. Instead of going to the school where everyone's like, oh, my God, you're going there, he went to a cheaper school that was still very good. He used I love the college scorecard where he just gives good answers to return on investment. And then his parents were like, okay, yeah, that's a discounted school. We agree with that. And then we'll also pay for your law school, right? So there's different strategies and ways for our families.
Yeah. And I think having many different types of schools on while you're exploring what schools to apply to, and having, not just having your financial safety and your academic safety, and as you say, one that you like, but there are going to be reach schools, and there's going to be, there needs to be, as you're exploring, many different options. And by doing that, hopefully students are getting in, and they're able to make a choice. And sometimes it's really tough. It really is when a student sees, this is where I want to be. And then you look at, oh my gosh, this is the end result. In 4 years, this is what it looks like. And it takes a lot of maturity for the student to be able to say, oh my gosh, this is a lot.
No, it is a lot.
And it's tough because it's theirs. It's not just the parent saying, oh no, we can't do it. But when a student sees it and they are able to say, okay, let's look at all the options. I think that's part of this process, and part of growing up is being able to look at things and being able to say, okay, we can do this, or, oh boy, this is a stretch.
Yeah. So look beyond the bling. Use that My Intuition net price calculator to start that conversation where you're that student, that parent. Because when you see the dollar sign, that makes you, there's a reality check.
And you mentioned the college scorecard, and the government has done a better job, and they're redoing. They've changed the college scorecard website a little, and so there's more data out there looking at, okay, how many people are coming back between first year and second year? And so how many people are graduating in 4 years? So if a school is going to cost me $20,000 more over 4 years, but the more affordable school, I can't get the biology courses I need to be pre-med, and it's going to take me 5 years. Like that's what there's just more and more data now to be able to look at everything and look at retention rates. Why are only 6 out of 10 people coming back between year 1 and year 2? That's a great question for the college.
Yeah, and students shouldn't be afraid asking those questions.
No, not at all.
Right, they should be, and they're welcome. Colleges will
Absolutely.
receive them. I've seen it before, and they encourage that, right? As well to another website, because you want to make sure what you shop with, you guys, like College Navigator, which is also another